National live from Moscow with me, Kate Partridge. Thank you for joining us. The President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, Pedro Agramunt, has landed himself in trouble for visiting Syria and meeting President Assad. There have been calls for him to leave office, but he said he has no intention of resigning. RT's Polly Boyko has more.
Pedro Agramunt is a Spanish politician, a member of the Spanish Senate, and he also is currently the president of PACE. But he might not be for much longer, because Agramunt is in big trouble with some of the PACE Assembly who have called for his impeachment. And it's all because of Agramunt's recent visit to Syria. Now, he says he visited in a personal capacity, not as the president of PACE. And it was a joint visit. He went there with other European and Russian politicians. And while they were there, they met up with the Syrian president, Bashar al-Assad. And when they found out about this, some of the PACE delegates were absolutely livid, and it sparked so much anger that Agramunt was forced to issue a confession, or rather an apology, about the visit.
This visit was a mistake, and I realized this after having seen the consequences. Since the beginning of my mandate, I have made 50 official visits, and no questions were raised about these.
That wasn't all of it. He also apologised for not informing the necessary authorities in PACE of the visit in advance, because he says he told the Spanish government about it because he went there in his capacity as a Spanish Senate member. And he also mentioned that the Russian media had manipulated his visit, although he didn't elaborate on which media had manipulated his visit or how. And travelling to Syria, it seems, can land you in hot water with both European and US politicians. It's not looked upon kindly by them. Last year, the European Parliament said that they wouldn't be paying for the expenses of the trip to Syria of several of its parliament members. So a number of MEPs had travelled to Syria, and the European Parliament said, we're not going to pay for this, it's your responsibility. A similar thing happened over in the US last year to the Congresswoman for Hawaii. Her name is Tulsi Gabbard. She's an Iraq war veteran, and she's quite critical about US foreign policy in Syria. And so she said that she wanted to see evidence of the crimes perpetrated, reportedly, by Bashar al-Assad's government. She wanted to see that evidence for herself, so she went to Syria on a fact-finding mission. That's how she called it. And she met with the president while she was there. The fact that she did that was met with absolute outrage by politicians in the US. So it's almost like a sort of air of witch hunt around anybody who wants to go and see what's happening in Syria with their own eyes. And that seems completely incompatible with this idea of ending the war in Syria, the talk that we hear about it, because how are you supposed to end the war in Syria if visiting the country or even talking to its president could cost you your job?
Well, to pick up on some of those issues, we can now be joined by Richard Black, Virginia State Senator. Richard, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, you've been to Damascus several times, and you've actually just come back from Syria. What prompted you to go, and do you think it was a similar motive for Mr. Agramunt?
Well, I'm very anxious to achieve peace in the Middle East. The United States, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar have promoted war in Syria for 6 years now. Because of those nations' actions, we have slaughtered hundreds of thousands of innocent people and disturbed one of the most peaceful countries in the Middle East. I thought it was very interesting. I looked at the charter for the Council of Europe, and part of it includes freedom of expression in the media. And here we have Mr. Agramunt going over there and communicating and doing exactly what the Council prescribes, which is to express things freely, to have journalistic interaction and so forth. And here he's being threatened with being fired. There is globally nearly total censorship of events occurring in Syria. And there is a tremendous desire to bar people from hearing the truth of what's going in Syria. It does not take long for anyone who visits the country to recognize that you have two sides. You have the popularly elected government of Syria fighting against the terrorists. The terrorists are supplied with United States anti-tank missiles, with money from Saudi Arabia, with trade from Turkey, and even Hillary Clinton, when she was the Secretary of State, there was a classified cable that was revealed, and she said, and these were her words, donors in Saudi Arabia constitute the most significant source of funding to Sunni terrorist groups worldwide. So there is this bizarre situation of censorship, and I think President Agramunt, I think he made a mistake. He should have been totally unapologetic. His view was to help find a solution to the war and to avoid further refugee crisis. That's it. There's nothing to apologize for. Everybody is so afraid of this force, this global force, and I simply refuse to be a part of it. And people don't quite know how to deal with me because of that.
Well, after you returned from Syria, you and, as we heard, fellow politician Tulsi Gabbard criticised American policy in Syria. Do you think the Western officials worry that if people, for instance, they go there and they see the Syrian government's position there, that they might understand that? Do you think there's a concern that there is a doubt they might see the other side?
I think there's a very deep concern. And if you look at the recent gas event, the Khan Shaykhun bombing, I have defied anyone on the planet to answer this question. If President Assad felt so desperate that he had to use sarin gas, why didn't he use it on enemy soldiers? Why would he go out and simply decide, let's just grab a group of people walking down the street with baby strollers and so forth. Let's attack them. We don't have time to attack the immense fortifications, the tens of thousands of terrorists who hold entrenched position. The notion is so absurd that a 3-year-old child should be able to see through the whole thing. There's no accuracy to it. Clearly, Syria did not use gas. They may have hit a warehouse that held rebel gas, but it certainly was not theirs. And I think what you see is a desperate effort to block the truth, and it has pervaded all Western media. I hear from more and more people that they listen to RT News because it's really one of the few outlets that provides any alternative view. There is a singular view that must be presented within the Western media, and anything else is censored.
Indeed. Well, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Richard Black, Virginia State Senator, thank you for joining us. Thank you.